On episode 190 of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we're going to discuss ketogenic training tips. Yes, if you want to lift weights or do any kind of running or any kind of exercise while on ketosis, this is the episode for you. You can find the full show notes for this episode at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/190. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness Podcast is here for you. I'm your host, Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with a specialization in corrective exercise and fitness nutrition. Let me be your coach as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. Are you looking to lose a little bit of weight? Surefire Results for Weight Loss is Forever Fitness's new program designed to help you lose the weight. It's a 28-day program, very simple lifestyle changes, not a heavy diet, not a lot of exercise, just some basic lifestyle changes that you can make for 28 days and lose the weight. I believe in it so much that it's completely guaranteed. If you don't lose the weight, I'll give you your money back. No questions asked. So do check us out, 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/surefire. That's 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/surefire. So today, for those of you that are interested in ketosis and also want to do some physical training, I'm going to share some of my tips for dealing with ketosis and training. I've been working with ketosis on and off over the course of the last couple of years, and I do know that it has some impact on how you train, when you train, and what training you are doing. And so if you're taking care and doing these little things, they're going to help you be much more effective in your training and kind of almost amplify the effects of what a ketogenic diet can do for your health and fitness. So tip number one, and you've heard this before if you were looking to get into ketosis, was that you want to keep your carbs below 20 grams. Typically when you're training, you might be able to ratchet that up a little bit, but you still want to start at about that 20 gram level to make sure that you're getting into good deep ketosis. Once you're in ketosis and you start your training, then you can kind of start playing around with how many carbs you eat, and later on we'll discuss the timing of those carbs. But for the time being, as you're trying to get in and stay in ketosis, you're going to want to keep your carbs very, very low. So most people say target around 20 grams. I know when I'm training hard, I can go as high as 50 grams, but I tend to still stay around that 20 gram number for most of the time. And it works. It works for me. So keep your carbs low. Even though you are training hard, you still want to keep your carbs low. So the second tip I have is testing. Now, you'll physically be able to feel when you're in ketosis. It's a slightly different feeling than you are when you're not in ketosis. When you're a fat burner rather than a sugar burner, that fuel just seems to operate in your body in a whole different way. And for the most part, you should get comfortable with that experience of what that is. But I still think it's a good idea for you to test. Now, there are three ways to test your ketones. One is through your urine. Second is through your blood, and third is through your breath. I'm a big fan of the blood testing because to me it's probably the most accurate, although again, not necessarily the most convenient. With the urine sticks, what I found is they can tell you whether you're in ketosis or not, but they really don't do a very good job of telling you how far into ketosis you are. And after your body gets used to using the ketones for energy, you may find that less and less is spilling out into your urine, and therefore the strips now become ineffective for you. So for long-term use of staying in ketosis and knowing you're in ketosis, I recommend that you go ahead and buy the monitor and go ahead and pay for the strips. The strips are pretty expensive, I'm not going to lie, so it's not something that you're going to want to do 2 or 3 times a day. I typically will monitor my blood sugar regularly and test for my ketones maybe every other day or every third day, and that tends to work for me and keep my cost at a reasonable amount for testing. Tip number 3 is timing. I talked about this a little bit when I was talking about your carbs. You may find that you need carbs at certain parts of the day or certain times to amplify or be able to be more effective in your gym workout. So looking at the timing of when you're working out and looking at the timing when you're taking in your food, you may want to experiment with that a little bit and just see if having the food at a certain time, like I typically want to have most of my carbs in the evening. I find that helps me sleep a little bit better. I don't feel groggy during the day. If I avoid carbs for breakfast and particularly for lunch, if I'm not doing intermittent fasting, I do find that in the evening is the best time for me to have the carbs. I wake up in the morning feeling pretty energized. My glycogen levels in my muscles have returned. I'm able to go out and do some pretty hard work either in the morning or later in that afternoon. But again, that works for me. So I just encourage you to mess around, experiment a little bit with the timing of when you're eating and when you're working out, and just kind of find that mix that works best for you and your lifestyle. Okay, number 4, we're going to talk a little bit about carb withdrawal. And so for the first few days when you're trying to get into ketosis, you're very likely going to find that you feel like crap. I know I do. I've done different strategies to try to avoid that feeling, but I can tell you that it is quite difficult for a few days there. You feel very flu-like, very fatigued, and that might be a time when maybe you're not going to be training. So you might want to factor that in as you get ready to go into ketosis if you're not already there, and recognize that during that period of time, your energy level is just not going to be there. You're not going to be able to really put a whole lot of intensity into your workouts. So maybe just toning it down, doing something a little bit more mild, some yoga, some Pilates, maybe walking. Those might be activities that you can easily do during that period of time. And then once you get into ketosis and you feel your energy level returning, then that's when you can start stepping up on the training. But just, be real with yourself and recognize that, if you're not feeling well because you're trying to get into ketosis, you need to kind of let your body do that in its own way and not push it or stress it any more than it needs to be. So avoiding a couple workouts there, or at least going a little bit lighter, is probably going to be in your best interest. So number 5 is to stay hydrated. And then this is just a good tip for anybody. If you're not properly hydrated, your muscles will not have what they need. Your blood will not have the volume that it needs, and your joints won't have the moisture that it needs, the lubrication that it needs to be healthy. And so I find when I'm on ketosis that I actually probably need to drink a little bit more water than I would when I'm not. And that's probably because I'm not eating as much vegetables, fruits, and some of the other things that have a little bit more. My body flushes a little bit of water right after I go into ketosis because I'm not taking in the carbs. So as my blood sugar levels kind of go down a little bit, I notice that the whole fluids of my body kind of go down a little bit. So that's a good time for you to make sure that you're taking in more water and staying generally hydrated. You'll know you're hydrated again when you're looking and your urine's basically clear throughout the day. And you'll know at that point you're pretty healthy. So just, again, making sure that you stay really hydrated, really well hydrated is going to be an important aspect to making sure that your body is in the right frame of mind, so to speak, that your body's in a good, capable position to do the work that you're going to ask it to do. The next 3, number 6, 7, and 8, are related. They're basically the electrolytes. And so I want to go through each of them individually because I think they're individually important, and it's important for you to understand what these different things do. The first one's sodium, and I know that your experience with sodium. It's in our salt. You're probably told that you have too much sodium, and if you're eating processed foods, you probably are. But if you're not eating processed foods and you're really watching what you're eating and sticking to predominantly fats and a little bit of moderate protein, you may not be getting as much sodium as you need, and you might actually be flushing out some of that sodium as you flush out the water. So this is probably a good time to make sure that you're doing a few things to up your sodium intake. A blood test can tell you if you have appropriate amounts of sodium, but really kind of the bottom line of it is if you just kind of feel sluggish, maybe feel nauseous, not feeling really well, that might be a good sign. That might be a sign that you need to take in some potassium and the sodium first. Let's talk that. So you're going to get sodium from salt. I would say buy good high quality salt. I tend to use the pink Himalayan salt, but you can use kosher salt. You can use some of the other basic salts. I would not go with the table salt that you basically buy in the store. It's very deeply processed. They've added iodine to it, which is fine for your thyroid if you need that. But again, it's just an additive. It's not necessarily a natural salt. Getting a more natural salt is a sea salt or something like a Himalayan sea salt. Those are going to be the better salts that I would tend to stick with. Okay, the second one is potassium. Now you're going to know when you need potassium because potassium is actually helping you keep the moisture in the organs and the muscles. And if you don't have enough potassium, you're probably going to notice some cramping. I know if my potassium gets a little low, I tend to get cramps at night in my legs. So making sure, again, that you're getting a good mix. And most of potassium and sodiums, you're going to get that from good vegetables, leafy green vegetables. So adding a little bit of sea salt to your leafy greens is going to make sure you are getting some of those electrolytes. And if you just find that you're having a difficult time getting those from foods, you can supplement. And there are some good supplements out there to make sure that you're getting that. Always take these supplements with food so your body kind of gets that it's a part of the food while it's digesting it and you get the most out of that nutrition. So the third electrolyte I wanted to talk about, and so this is item number 8, is magnesium. Magnesium, again, is another electrolyte that we tend to get from a lot of the different fruits and vegetables that we would eat. If we're not eating as much of those, we might not be getting as much magnesium as we need. Magnesium is a very important element in our body for energy, so you want to make sure that you're getting enough. One of the hacks for good sleep is that I take a product called ZMA Fuel, and it's basically a zinc and magnesium product, and that's where I get my extra magnesium. I take that right before bed, and it helps me sleep better. But that's just a supplement that I've added to my diet. I take it even when I'm not into ketosis because it's just something that really helps me sleep a good bit better. So I enjoy taking that magnesium at night. And there's a lot of different magnesium products. You don't have to take the ZMA, but there's a lot of magnesium products that you can take. Some of them you can apply to your skin, some of them sublingual, some are actually like I'm taking is the capsules. So you can find a magnesium supplement pretty easily, or you can try to start getting it from Whole Foods. Again, I'm always a big proponent of whole foods, but if you're not eating as many vegetables and fruits, you may struggle to get enough of this. So just take that into account as you are looking at your training and the training quality. Number 9 is protein. And obviously, if you're lifting heavy, your protein needs are going to be a little bit more. But don't go overboard with protein, because if you're getting excess protein, your body is going to turn that into blood sugar. And if it's turning that into blood sugar, it may actually push you out of ketosis. I'm one of those individuals that I do need a good bit of protein when I'm exercising, but at the same time, if I get too much protein, it will push me out of ketosis. So I can't just go eat a 16-ounce steak and think I'm good. That's going to probably push me close to being out of ketosis if that's not a very fatty steak. If it's a high protein, basically a lean cut of steak, I'm very likely going to come out of ketosis because of the excess protein in there. So find that right balance of protein, and you'll kind of know if you're getting a good balance. If you can test your blood sugar after meals to see what's happening with the different foods. But just another way is you'll notice if you're not recovering very well, you're probably getting not enough protein. If you kind of cut back on the protein a little bit over time, and you find that kind of that sweet spot, that's where you want to kind of stick. And so I would say, experiment a little bit with your protein to find the minimum amount that you need to meet your needs. And then, the rest of your calories should come from fat, and then a very little amount of carbs so that you can maintain ketosis in an appropriate way. Okay, number 10 is quality. When you're in ketosis, it's not necessarily that you're eating less food. In many cases you're eating more fat, but making sure that you're getting good quality fats and making sure that you're getting good nutrition in the foods that you're eating is more critical now than ever. So making sure that the fruits and vegetables that you are eating were grown in a way that they were able to pull the right nutrients out of the ground. A lot of times we buy the tomatoes or buy the foods in the grocery store, and those things were picked before they even became even close to being ready. And they're packaged, and then when they get to the store, they spray a gas on them, boop, they turn red, and they go ahead and sell them. And these vegetables really didn't get an opportunity to really pull good nutrition out of the ground and grow. And same thing with chickens and other animals. If they're not fed well, they're not managed well, those animals can in fact not get all the nutrition they need, and they don't necessarily develop and build what you need. So just try to focus a little bit more on quality. Because you're eating a little less as far as the total quantity of food, you're not going to probably spend a whole lot more to get good quality food than you would from as in the past. So in the past, I very easily would throw down, a 16-ounce, a 24-ounce steak, no problem whatsoever. But that was because I really wasn't getting all the nutrition I needed from the foods I was eating. I was eating a lot of crap, and therefore I needed these other foods in excess. Now that I'm focused on getting higher quality foods, I find that a smaller portion size gives me exactly what I need from a macro level and from a micronutrient level. And so I just focus again on real good high quality foods and really make that kind of an emphasis in my eating. Because, as we're doing our workouts, the core of what we're trying to do is get our body to rebuild and be stronger and better. But if we're giving it crap materials to build our body, then basically that's what you're getting is crap materials in your body. Your body's becoming what you eat. And that, that slogan has been out there for a while, you are what you eat. But it's really, really a true statement. So now that you're really focused on your health, if you've done the work to get yourself into ketosis and you're in the gym or you're out running and that's what you're doing for yourself, take the time to put good food in your body. I'm serious about that. That's probably the most fundamental thing for health and fitness, is to make sure that you're getting good food. And so number 11, the final one, is eat when you're hungry. Now, I did talk about timing, so timing is important, but don't feel like you have to eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, 2 snacks, and whatever the other rhetoric is. I mean, it's great to be social, sit with the family if that's what you need to do to be a part of all of the social things, but don't feel compelled that you have to eat every meal when everybody else is eating. Because quite frankly, in a ketotic state, there might be periods of time when your body is literally just eating the fat on your body, which is what you're somewhat after in a ketosis diet. But if you go eat something, now you kind of put that on hold. So if you're not hungry, don't eat. If you don't need the energy because you have plenty of energy to do your workouts, then don't worry about it. Don't feel like you have to be locked into that eat. Now, eventually your ghrelin will figure out what you need and it'll figure out when you need it. Ghrelin will kick up and, that's when you're going to be hungry and that's when you can sit down and have a good meal. Again, ghrelin tends to kick up in the evening, which is the time when most people would be doing most of their eating. The time when I want to have most of my carbs, that whole bit. So when I'm doing my intermittent fasting, which almost becomes like a natural thing to me once I get into ketosis, I wake up in the morning, I'm not even anywhere near hungry. And lunchtime rolls around, I'm not anywhere near hungry. And so it might be 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock before I really even say, hey, I'm a little hungry. And so I plan a really nice dinner, and that's my meal for the day. And I may have a snack a little bit later, right before bed, because again, I'm not really working to cut my calories on a ketotic diet. I really just am changing the macros, and the body's taking care of the rest of it. So I'll go back and recap these real quick. Number 1 is to remain keeping your total carbs down below 20 grams. That's the advice you get from just about everybody who coaches anybody or teaches anything on the ketotic diet. That's kind of the best starting point. And then as you're working, as you're going, you can kind of edge that up a little bit if you want, just to find out what your level is. Make sure you're testing. If you're not testing, you can't really know if you're in ketosis. And there's a lot of dynamics here. There's the amount of carbs, there's the amount of protein. All those things come in, and if you just don't know necessarily that you're in ketosis, testing is a good way to maintain that. The urine strips are great to tell you that you've gone into ketosis, but they become ineffective after a period of time because your body starts using those ketones more efficiently and they're not spilling into the urine. The blood strips are a little bit more expensive, but to me are our total best option. I haven't done a lot of experiment with the breath ketone monitor. It's relatively expensive on the front end, but obviously you just plug it into USB and go. So maybe not the most expensive overall. It might be quite effective for you, something to do some research on. But make sure you are testing your blood sugar so you can kind of see what your work does to your blood sugar, what your eating does to your blood sugar, and obviously that you're in ketosis and when you're in ketosis and kind of what those levels are as well. Okay, the timing of when you work out and when you eat can be important. So experiment with that and make it your own. Figure out what works for you. So you're optimizing your overall energy level and optimizing your workouts and getting the most benefit from the work and getting the most benefit from the food. Number 4 is when you're going through the carb withdrawal cycle, which we all do, also known as keto flu. When you're going through that process, it's okay to not work out so hard. Don't feel like you have to push through some workout program just because that's your program. If you're going through this withdrawals, give your body a break, let it get where it needs to be, and then you can resume with your workouts then. Make sure you stay hydrated. Hydration is always an important factor in health and fitness, and this is really, really important when you get into ketosis, that you make sure you're maintaining good hydration. The next 3, again, were the electrolytes, so sodium, potassium, magnesium. Make sure you're getting those. You're not eating a lot of the foods that you would get most of that nutrition from, so making sure now that you maybe supplement with that, or at least focus on the types of foods that are going to provide that. Avocados, leafy greens, that type of thing are going to be what you want to target to get those electrolytes. But if you're not getting them there, then look at supplementation and also using the sea salts and whatnot. And then number 9 is protein. Find the right level of protein for the work you're doing. If you're lifting heavy, you might need a little bit more, but you probably don't need that much more. So kind of find that right level of protein and you'll make sure you're not kicking yourself out of ketosis and you're not wasting any of that. You can use that food for energy, focusing more on the fats and carbs. And then number 10 is the quality of food. Always get the best quality food you can afford. That's for everybody, but when you're in ketosis, you're limiting the types of foods that you're eating. So you just want to make sure that you're getting the best quality foods, and that'll help you make sure you're getting a well-rounded nutritional outlay as you go. And then finally, only eat when you're hungry and don't feel compelled to eat breakfast. Don't feel compelled to eat lunch. Give your body the energy it needs when it needs it. And if it doesn't need it, don't force feed yourself. Eat when you're hungry. Ketosis will change your appetite. You'll feel sustained for long periods of time without food, and that's quite normal. So don't feel like it's abnormal to not eat. If you're not hungry, it's abnormal to force yourself to eat. So you now have my ketonic training tips, and I hope you enjoyed that. If you enjoyed this podcast and thought you got something great from it, I'd really appreciate it if you would share it with friends and family. Thank you. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, I share some of my favorite resistance training, weight training tips. Until then, have a happy and healthy day.